Alrighty, I think that we are live. Awesome. You know, I'm really curious about something because it seems sometimes that there's like a much longer pause of me just staring at the screen than I believe that there is when I actually hit live. Like when I hit live here, it just goes straight to the counter clicking off. But I'm wondering if it intercepts a few seconds or like 30 seconds of my preview stream. I don't know. That's it. Esoteric YouTube stuff you guys probably don't care about. But if you don't know what's going on here, my name is Nick. This is Board Game Brawl. I'm turning off the audio on my feed so that you don't hear me talking over myself, which once is enough, I think. But what we do here is a live Q&A. I do this every week where you can just ask me whatever you like. Board game related, obviously, I anticipate that is the majority of the questions. But if you have any other questions for me, if you are curious what I think about certain things of pop culture, anime, movies, TV shows, life in general, I will do my best to answer them. I cannot promise I will answer every single question, either because I may just not be comfortable answering certain questions on the air, but I will consider all questions, like all things considered. I made that joke last week. It wasn't funny then. So what's going on here? Channel updates. I was kind of slow the last week, last couple weeks because, I don't know, the holidays and just being really busy and having a lot going on. Took a lot out of me, and man, I don't like the lighting much at all. It's probably alright. So I didn't have as many reviews up as I wanted to. I'm way behind on reviews, like you have no idea. But I did put up 4 reviews overnight, and I oh, that's weird. Never mind. A couple of them I'm very, very, very happy and proud of. A couple of them are negative reviews, and I anticipate some blowback on those, but that's the way it goes. And there will be there should be a paid preview up, too. Maybe I'll do that while I'm talking. I forgot to make it live. That is totally my fault. But other things that are going on, I will be having more reviews coming up. I've got my game group meeting tonight. I'm hoping I can actually finish Pandemic Legacy soon, so maybe I'll do I don't even know if I'm going to or not. I was thinking of doing another final closing thoughts review for Pandemic Legacy, but I wonder if it's not pointless. I don't want to put out a video just to put it out. Sometimes I'm okay doing clickbaity things, and sometimes it just kind of makes my skin crawl. So, like, I oftentimes say to myself, would I watch this video? So I don't know that I'm going to do a second pandemic video, like so many other people have done their 4th, 5th, and 6th pandemic videos. But that's how things go sometimes. I am going to be reviewing very soon Zombie Tower 3D. You can look at some pics on that on my Facebook page. I will also be reviewing, finally, The Terrifying Girl Disorder, which is just a weird name for a trick-taking game, essentially. And what else? Catacombs, maybe. Hopefully soon. That may require multiple plays, and I may actually want to wait until I get the expansion in my hands and then just do them both at the same time. Possibly Dungeon Saga, possibly Dice City, possibly Carnival Zombie ahead of the Kickstarter. I want to get that up before the Kickstarter starts. So there is that. So there's some things going on. Bear with me. I'm just kind of talking and spouting off while I am doing something I neglected to do. But we all have responsibilities, kids, and I gotta take care of my responsibilities. So what else has been going on? I've been trying to catch up on TV. I am finally sitting down and watching the rest of The Man in the High Castle, which is from Amazon, which I had watched a pilot of 6 months ago, and I was quite impressed. I liked it a lot. I think it got mixed reviews, but I really enjoyed it. And it's really good. I'm up to episode 2.5. It's literally on my screen now, paused, since I'm doing this. Thanks, guys. It's quite all right. But it's a really good show. I also enjoy that I binge watched. I finally got around to watching the anime adaptation of Parasite, which was a manga I read back in the early maybe mid-90s is when I read it, but it was from like the late 80s, early 90s. And it was quite good. Definitely looked different. For those of you who, who aren't as old as me and weren't around that long, watching anime and things like that, there is a style of manga and anime, because they're linked intrinsically, symbiotically. There's a symbiote circle, as Obi-Wan would say. They, back in the 80s and 90s, they just looked different. It's hard to describe. It's not that they looked bad, but they were much more influenced by like the old Osamu Tezuka art style, and it just looked rough. It looked rough by our eyes today, but now it's like full of super cute chibi moe type things, which, you know, you can say what you want about that. Some people hate it, some people don't, but it is different for sure. All right, guys, I am trying to get this done really quickly, and I apologize for that, but hey, you only came here to hear me talk anyways, right? All right, so here I'm going to do this. And then we're going to be done. Boom shakalaka. Good enough for government work. Boom. All right, yeah. There's a preview video up for a Kickstarter just launched this morning called Alienation. So check that out, please. It's good to see. Yes, I'm skipping ahead. Yes, the Parasite manga. I'm assuming the anime ended. See, that's the thing, is that I didn't read the end of the manga. I got very far through it, and then for whatever reason I got distracted and moved on to other things. But I never saw the ending. And so with the anime, I finally got to see the ending, which I assume was close enough to the manga. They probably made some changes. But yeah, it's preachy. It's very preachy. But I will say this. It's better than most anime endings, because most anime endings are shite. Okay? You have to be an anime fan to understand. Alright, I will actually address this question. Hey Nick, what do you think of forming a group rivaling the Dice Tower with the defunctors like, I don't even know, is that a word? I'm challenging that. The defunctors like Game Boy Geek, Bart from Hamtag, etc. You can be like the Suicide Squad of board game reviewers. I like your gusto. You've got some good spunk and initiative, kid. I don't know that that's going to work. And I think part of the issue is we're all lone wolves who occasionally share hunting grounds. It is interesting that if you think about the three people that you mentioned, me, Bart Brunch, I think is his last name, which is a great name, and Dan King, the Game Boy Geek, who I like. I'm friends with him. We've talked occasionally when we've needed to give each other advice on certain things. And it's so interesting that the three of us are so very different. Sometimes we have crossover. I think like Bart likes Zombicide and things like that. But Bart is more into war games, heavy miniatures games, which I only dabble in because I'm kind of like the all-around gamer. But Dan is much more into party games, deduction games, family weight games. He'll dabble in some Euros, but only like lighter Euros. Is my impression, and I'm not saying any of this is bad. It's just very interesting to me that we have such different styles. As to me, I try to be an all-around gamer, but I'm more clearly in the camp of Ameritrash, light card games, deck building games, things like that. As I itch myself disgustingly. Hey Nick, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to all of you. I should have said that in the beginning. I'm very sorry about that. Have you ever played Innovation? If you did, are you a fan of the game? I have played Innovation. To say that I'm a fan of the game, it would be the exact opposite of that. I hated it. I really did. I guess I'm not being fair to it. I've only played it once. But my God, it was the most random, chaotic mess. And there's an incredibly steep learning curve. Not that it's a difficult game to understand, but that someone who's played before, like I think even one time, will absolutely crush someone else. And which you might say, well, then how can the game be random? Because, I don't know. It's a very tactical game. And, I don't know. For me, it was just too far all over the place. It was too long for what it was. I mean, it is just a bunch of really ugly-looking cards. I think there's a new edition that looks better. But I found it to be very, just looking at it made my eyes hurt. I didn't care for it. The person I played it with loved it. Other people in my group love it. There's a lot of people who love it. It's a very critically acclaimed game, just not by moi. So, what can I say? I'm an outlier. Hey Nick, we love to play Eldritch, Descent, and Imperial Assault, but I need a deeper game than party games when we are 6 or more. Oh, okay. How about Tannhauser, or can you recommend something else? Tannhauser for 6 or more? Would that work? Is that one of those miniatures games where you can just like buy as much stuff as you can and then you can do it with multiple players? Okay, I don't know. But you want a deeper game than party games. For 6 or more, Twilight Imperium. It goes up to 6 players. That's about as deep as you're going to get. And long. I personally can't recommend it just because I haven't played it, but there you go. That's an interesting question. Super Dungeon Explorer goes up to 6. Well, yeah, I think it does. With it's the Overlord, the console, and then 5 other people working together. Pathfinder Adventure card game goes up to 6 if you buy the character expansion pack. I don't think any of the base sets alone. I think those only have 4 characters, but you have to buy a character pack. You can do... I'm pretty sure the Legendary games... No, Legendary Marvel only goes to 5. Maybe the other ones only go to 5 as well. I can't remember. Cosmic Encounter. There you go. Cosmic Encounter is fucking great with 6. 5 or 6 is the perfect numbers for that game. Who or what inspired you to become a YouTube board game reviewer? Well, the initiative to do that was actually a couple of friends of mine. I had no inclination to do it. And my friends Gary and Tom, who were members of my group, and Gary especially was coming to my group very often and still does. He'll actually be here tonight for the first time in a while. They just came out of nowhere, and they did and they do videos on video games. They'll do like let's play videos for that, and just like commentary videos with their friends. And then they were like, hey, why don't you do videos? And they wanted to get into a partnership with me because I had the website. And that's why in the very early videos, you might still be able to see some relics of that. Like they were helping me with some production. And then I was plugging the classicgamer.com or .net. And then that kind of faded away as this kind of took off and I went in my own direction and they kind of went in their own direction. And I was actually writing articles for their site, which is just basically like I did a review and then I wrote a text piece to go along with it. You can still find those if you go to the Classic Gamer, I think. And so that was the main initiative because I had no inclination to do it, and they were like, hey, why don't you do it? You have so many games and you have a lot to say and you speak well. And I said, all right, fine. And then I developed a taste for it. It really was only that. I liked other video reviewers that I was watching online, but I never said, oh, I want to do that. I can do that. But maybe I always had that feeling in me, and these guys just gave me the oomph and the push to do it. I don't know. But see, I always wanted to do a podcast, and even after that was the case. So when they said, "Hey Nick, do you want to do videos? We'll help you out with it," and we started doing them, I'm like, okay, that's neat. But what I really want to do is a podcast. So I tried to focus on getting that together for the first few weeks, and to the point where I was looking up equipment that I would need and like nicer equipment than I have now, just strictly for doing audio. And I could not find hosts that I was comfortable with. I didn't want, and I don't want to offend anybody, I didn't want just another fanboy. Like, obviously, when I would say that, people would be like, I'll be your host, and that's great. I didn't want someone like me. I didn't want another fanboy, and I am a fanboy, I'm not using that pejoratively. And I didn't want to sound like every other show. I wanted a woman co-host. I wanted to have a different perspective on things. I wanted to come at it from a different angle. But it just never quite came together, and I decided that videos were going to be better for me. So that's the very long version of that story. How useful do you think it is to say in a review that you are permanently keeping a game? I don't think it's that useful. It's not useful for me anymore. Once upon a time, that would have been useful when my collection was much smaller, but now I'm actually at a point where I have no more room for games. I don't know what I'm going to do, honestly. It's kind of causing me minor first world panic attacks. I have piles of games all over the place, and I don't know what to do with them because I don't have the time to play every single game. And so for me, my new Calyx shelves filled up the first day, where I'm supposed to be putting the games I'm keeping permanently. So what do I do in that case? So when I play a game and I like it, that doesn't mean I'm keeping it anymore. But does that mean that it's lost its value? That it's not as good a review because I'm not keeping it? I don't know. Like, I don't know that... Like, I just put up my review for Deception. I like Deception a lot. It's a very good game. I'm not sure that I'm keeping it. Because I might feel like some other games do what that game does, and I don't know, I just don't have the room, as small as the box is. Does that mean that it has less value? No. It's a great game, and other people really love it too, but sacrifices have to be made. If this was like the early days, I would say yes, that would be some value, because I'd be like, hey, I've only got 100 games, I'm adding one more, that type of thing. But it's just not the case anymore. Hey Nick, happy another day. So what is the biggest surprise of 2015? Surprise. Well, I believe early in the year, was it this year or last year where the big acquisitions happened? I mean, like, Plaid Hat happened this year, Plaid Hat being bought out by Philosophia, and I believe it was Fantasy Flight very early in the year, right? Or was that last year? I can't remember. But I would say that those count as big surprises. I would also say the rise of the legacy style, permaplay games, or games, unreplayable games, like not just Pandemic Legacy, but Time Stories, and other games that have a lot of surprises in the box, like Kingdom Death Monster. That has really been a surprise to me, how much I love those games and how much I want that kind of content to continue. And I hope that, like, the whole app thing was the big buzz last year, and actually the very early this year as well. And that kind of died out. And it's not that it's died out, it's just that people came to their senses and realized, oh, some games will have this, but most won't. But I don't care if that becomes a trend or not, but I do hope that the kind of content that's in Pandemic Legacy and Time Stories does continue. So that's my big takeaway from last year. Joel Edie gave you a shout out on his anticipated for 2016 list. He said he saw you do a list, so he decided to. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that he had a list up. Maybe was that just recently? I will have to check that out. I like Joel, and I obviously I'm influenced by his channel, and it's nice to hear that we've got like I think Joel and I have like the friendliest competition amongst the reviewers, and we're in the same wheelhouse we're very different in our opinions, but as far as we both do our channel solo for the most part, and we like our specific types of games, and we're very thorough and thoughtful in our reviews, and yeah, I'm sure, and I think there's a lot of crossover between our two audiences because of that. So he's always the guy that I look at as like, what is he doing? And what kind of inspiration can I take from that? And I still think that we kind of go in our own directions, but it's nice to have people who are bumping off of each other and urging the other person to do better. So I appreciate it if he gave me a shout out, for sure. I'll have to watch that list later on today while I'm frantically doing a bunch of stuff I have to do before game night, which is always stressful. What is your favorite multi-game, lesser-known What? What is your favorite multi-game, lesser-known IP? Clarify that question for me. Maybe I'm just still in my sleeping fog here. Hey Nick, hi Nick, any plans for your birthday in a few weeks? How do you know that? I must have that marked somewhere on social media. No, I don't have plans. I don't do anything for my birthday. I don't even know what day it falls on this year. Would I take a day off maybe? It's on a Wednesday. It'll just be another day. What's up, Nick? Did you do anything for New Year's? I got together with a couple of friends and just played games. That's all. It was going to be another game night where it's like, all right, guys, here's what I got to review. Get ready. But we played one game like that, which was Zombie Tower 3D. And then one of the longtime members of my group was like, can we play Pandemic Legacy again, please? And I was like, let's do it. And we just played Pandemic Legacy until 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's how that went. But it was fun, and I'm glad I think we might even play it again tonight, because it'll be the three of us again with some other people. I might just try and knock it out. We'll see. Where are we at? Oh, the rest of your question was we played a game of Eldritch Horror fighting Ithaqua. We lost horribly. He's a tough one, I think. I remember him being tough out of the the Mountains of Madness box. Because it was him in the City of the Elder Things, and I think the City of the Elder Things is the easy ancient one in that box. Every set seems to have an easy one and a hard one. Like in this new one, it's the Pyramids. It's Aboth is the easy one, and Nephron Ka is the tough one. So yeah, I think Ithaqua was the hard one for that one. I might be wrong. Nick, your favorite J-pop band? Sadly, I don't really know them much by name. I just know them by their anime. I don't know. And very rarely do I actually follow the rest of that band's music. I will say that when I was a kid, I used to be much more into buying CDs and actually imported a lot of Japanese bands. I remember that there was the cult classic anime show Serial Experiments Lain, which I haven't watched in a number of years. I should probably watch that again and see if it still holds up. But the intro song for that was a song sung in English, and very clear English. I was surprised. And it's really good, from a band called BoA, B-O-A. And so I actually tracked down that CD, and there were some good songs on it. I probably still have that somewhere. I should probably listen to it again. Would Kingdom Death Monster also be your favorite solo game? I was just thinking about that yesterday. Because I was thinking to myself, my next, I'm going to do other top 10 lists in the meantime, but the one I really want to get knocked out is the solo list, which I'm waiting on some other games to come in that are specifically solo, like Dawn of the Zeds, before I do that. And I thought to myself, well, Kingdom Death Monster is something I like to play solo, preferably solo. So isn't that just going to be number one? And I was having an internal debate with myself, should I purposefully knock that down further on the list or not even include it at all? Because I don't want every list that it could be applied to be dominated by Kingdom Death Monster. I don't know. That feels disingenuous to me, but it also feels like, again, I want to spotlight other games. Otherwise, what's the point of doing multiple lists? I think it'll be on the list, but I think I'm going to purposefully knock it down a few spots. But also, if I come at it from another angle for a solo list, Kingdom Death Monster, as great as it is, requires a ton of setup, a ton of time to lay it out in table space, and sometimes the benefit of a solo game is to be able to be fast and portable and quick, to do something to kill time, to be able to take it down easier, to make some room for something else, to take it to like if I'm playing Urbion at a restaurant or at while I'm getting my oil changed, and I can't do those things with Kingdom Death Monster. So it depends on what angle I come at the list from. It may not legitimately be number one at all. Question: have you played the game Baseball Highlights 2045 and or Quarriors? If yes, how do you find them? I have played Baseball Highlights 2045 once or twice, and I do need to review it. I wanted to try some of the other game modes, and it just got shoved down the review queue, and now it's languishing on my shelf somewhere. I got to get to that at some point. But I liked it, what I played. Quarriors, still in my collection. I still enjoy it. I am having a debate with myself. Now, on my top 100, I said Dice Masters replaced it. I may be coming around to another way of thinking on that, because I am so sick of collecting Dice Masters. I love Dice Masters. I am really hating the gotta have them all mentality of it, the compulsion to get as much of it as I can, especially now that I can't buy it online anymore, which is the most absurd and ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. So, but I like Quarriors a lot, regardless. The only problem with Quarriors ever was that it's one of those games where it's just like, buy the clutch card and you'll win. If you're the first person to buy the clutch card, you'll win the game. That was alleviated somewhat with some extra rules and some new sets that came out, and I actually like the Quarterfacts expansion a lot. So I need to do reviews of all that stuff. What are some good two-player games? Oh, well, I'll just tell you. Okay, that's a very broad question, Derek. There's a lot of good two-player games. Definitely go on Board Game Geek, see which kind of games spark your fancy. You can probably go and say, what are the top 10 sci-fi games for two players? Things like that. But I don't play two-player games as much as other people. This is one of the few times I will do this, but I am most interested in helping my audience however I think I can help them out. So I will tell you that you should go and check out some of Rado's stuff, because he plays games exclusively two-player and solo, I think. So you'd be better off to answer that question. But a follow-up question from the quarantine, actually mentions a game that is a good 2-player game, Seven Wonders Duel. He says, I got that game and absolutely love it. If I like Duel, would I be good to get Seven Wonders? That's an interesting point. I think I disagree with some reviewers on this. I feel the games are so different that it's like basketballs and oranges. Because it really is. Seven Wonders is more of a traditional card drafting game. It's like the most notable card drafting game amongst our circle now. And it's just pick and pass cards and then play them and then build them up. So part of it is very similar to Seven Wonders, where you are getting like the science and the tech, but the way that you draft them, the whole thing with the board, with the military, the way that you make the wonders is all a bit very different. And I think Seven Wonders is a fine game. I was never really in love with it, like other reviewers have been. But I don't know. I think there might be a danger in thinking that they're too similar. So I don't think it's a guarantee that you'll love it if you like Seven Wonders Duel. There's just a better chance. If you can, everyone's got a copy. If you know a friend who has a copy, ask them to bring it over and try it. That's the best advice I can give. Hi, Nick. Are you always the one reading the rules? And don't you lose a lot of time with reading with all the games that you play? Yeah, and what I should be doing is getting better at reading the rules ahead of time. But it doesn't matter. I'd still have to explain the game to everyone else. So, yeah, that's just the way that it works. The first time that we play a game, I have to read the rules, and I usually do it on the spot. And yeah, you lose a lot of time. But again, if I have to explain it to people again anyways, then I don't know what else I can do. Now, in the early days of my group, before I even had a channel, and I just wanted to get as many games played in an evening as I could, I would post links to the rule book and be like, hey guys, I'd have games scheduled out. Here's what we're going to play. Here are the links to the rule books. Please take a look if you want to play. How many people do you think actually did that? 0. Always and ever. So eventually I stopped. Nick, do you think we are going to see branding and marketing involvement from big companies, assuming the rising trend of sales of board games? That's kind of a rough sentence, but I think I know what you're saying. Like maybe like product placement in games or more branded board games. You're going to see many, many more IP games, meaning games based off of TV series, movies, anime, hopefully anime, books, things like that, for sure. Because now it's been like, oh, whoa, hey, wait a minute. Not only are these games selling, they're good. Not that a game being good is incentive enough for a corporation to invest money into it. It's just a matter if it sells or not, right? But in our hobby game market, if a game is really good, it gets that buzz, and it sells well because of that, I would argue actually that if a game is just okay, it will sell well. And that's a whole other issue I have a problem with, but I just bought the Orphan Black game. I don't have it in my hands quite yet, so sadly, don't expect a review on that until like mid next week, maybe. But yeah, you're going to see more of that. I don't know that you're going to see like advertisements in games. I think that'd be neat, but I don't mind that. I think I want to see board games become more mainstream. So until it becomes too obnoxious, I don't have a problem with it. But yeah, more intellectual properties you're going to see. Of course, not just Star Wars either, although expect a lot more of that. If you were sick of Star Wars board games and board gaming related paraphernalia before, you should just get out of the hobby right now because it's going to get 20 times worse. Nick, how hyped are you for the Mage Knight style Star Trek game coming out soon? I can't remember its name. It's called Star Trek Frontiers. It's interesting because I had toyed with the idea of putting that on my anticipated list. It was in the running. I had a lot of potentials for that list, and I think I put together maybe 40 games potentially that I was interested in that could have theoretically been on the list, and Star Trek Frontiers would have been maybe my 11 to 20. And I think the only thing that kept me from putting it on there was that I'm still sort of on the fence about Mage Knight to begin with. And I'm not sure that I like Star Trek a lot, but I still like fantasy themes better, and it seems to work. I can't imagine the Star Trek theme on that system, apparently, as much as everyone else can. And I'm also worried because it's WizKids. And WizKids has really bad production issues, really bad issues with like rule books, and just a lot of problems. And there are availability issues, which gives me serious pause. Like the last expansion for Mage Knight, which I don't have, and but that's the reason I don't have it, is because apparently it was a huge clusterfuck where it's just like it was huge production issues. The cards were all wrong sized, and something with the tokens was bad. I mean, the rule book even. Copies were damaged, and it's just a disaster. How do you let that happen? And you're supposed to be a major player in the game. WizKids is a major player in the game. And then that together with their garbage with Dice Masters not selling it online, all of these things are making me very, very wary of any game coming from that company. Just the way it is. Otherwise, I would be excited about it. Did you go all in with Arcadia Quest Inferno? I didn't go all in with. I don't go all in with any Cool Mini or Not project anymore. I bid for $1 and see what happens. But I probably will be getting a lot of stuff together with that. I don't want to miss some of the exclusives this time, which I'm part of the problem. I know. I hate it. What is the most Ameritrash game you have ever played? Craziness. Probably. It's got to be Star Wars The Queen's Gambit, right? That thing is like a monument to Ameritrash sensibilities. Tons and tons of plastic, simple gameplay, warlike gameplay of, I roll dice, I kill your guys, ha ha ha. Science fiction theme, oh yeah, all over the place. Hey Nick, since we are about the same age, did you also follow Cyborg 009 in the 90s? I never watched that. I was most into anime in the 90s, but for some reason I just never had an interest in that one. I know it was on Cartoon Network for a while. I heard it was never finished. Maybe that was why I never bothered with it. Have you seen Madoka? Magical Girl Madoka, something like that. I hate Magical Girl trash, and it took me forever to get around to watching it. I'm so happy I did, though. It's among my favorites, along with Evangelion, Gurren Lagann, and Panty and Stocking. I started watching Panty and Stocking when it first got released some years ago, and I just never stuck up with it. It was alright. I felt like some of the humor was super funny, and some of it was just like gross out for the sake of being gross out, but I appreciated what they were doing. But that's interesting. I know Madoka is supposed to be the anti-Magical Girl show, in the same way that Evangelion was the anti-Giant Robot show. I don't know what exactly that entails, but I would be interested in trying it out. I'm a softie for some of that Magical Girl stuff from my younger days, like Cardcaptor Sakura. I really loved. Magical Lyrical Nanoha is a great show. For just people who like to see giant laser beams. That's the whole show, is just giant laser blasts. I think you re-asked that question. Did a game called Nova Atos approach you about a Kickstarter preview? No. Never even heard of that. Let's take a look. It's obviously not. It looks like it's a video game. It's a video game? Are they making a board game out of it? Or is this just a coincidence? So no, I have not. What? Hey Nick, we love to play... What the heck? Oh, people are re-asking questions. Different people. Don't do that. I'll get to them. If I miss questions or if I lose questions because YouTube eats them, I'll let you know. Aside from Codenames in your top 100, I can't remember you ever doing a review about a Vlaada Chvátil game. Have you played many of his games, and what do you think about his designs in general? Well, in the early days of the channel, I actually did a review of Galaxy Trucker with my friend Robbie. It was one of the very few reviews I ever did with someone else. Maybe the only one, maybe one or two. Because, and the reason I brought Robbie on was because I hate Galaxy Trucker. He loves it. It is, in fact, I believe, still his favorite game. So I thought it would be interesting because he and I would tease each other about it, and I thought it'd be interesting to have him on the show. I did some really stupid. Well, you can go ahead and watch it. It's pretty primitive still, even by my standards, but it's a good watch. So I did that. I don't like it. Have I ever reviewed any of his other stuff? Maybe not. I've played a lot of his other stuff. I've played Dungeon Pets. I've played Mage Knight. Mage Knight I'm still ambivalent about. Dungeon Pets I do not like. I like Dungeon Pets better than Galaxy Trucker, and I was really excited for that game, but I think it's just a mathy mess. Too long, too complicated, too many little finicky things. I don't know that I've played any of his other ones, but it's possible I have. How do you deal with aggressive and careless Magic the Gathering players at your local game store? I don't go to local game stores, so I'm lucky in that regard. I don't have to deal with that garbage. Aggressive and careless, I guess I would need to know what you mean by that. Now, occasionally I do. I used to go down to Cool Stuff every month. I don't do that anymore to do a gaming session there. That stopped. But there were Magic the Gathering players all over the place there, and I still run into them when I go there to pick up an order. They're kind of nice people, but I think Cool Stuff runs their place differently. Cool Stuff has a no-nonsense policy. There will be no shenanigans at our locations. This is supposed to be a family store where people can just walk in and do whatever. And I think that they lay down the law on that, and people behave accordingly. I've never been in a place where Magic the Gathering players were like so obnoxious that they were a problem. But I have heard that from other people. And how would I deal with it if in that hypothetical situation? Look, as much as I want to be like, stand up for yourself, you go and you tell those people to shut up. You can't do that. Even if your pride is telling you you need to do that, you have zero idea how that situation is going to escalate, and you don't want that to happen. You could just make things worse. You could end up being the bad guy in the eyes of everyone else in the store. You need to go to the management, express your concerns. I realize this is the cheesy milquetoast answer, but it is the truth. You need to go to the management, express your concerns. If nothing changes, if nothing happens, you need to find someplace else to play if it's that much of a problem. I'm not answering that question, but that's a funny one, Quarantine. If you're a fan of Dan, maybe you could advise him... What? Oh, you bring that up. I'm not bringing that up. What's that game you were talking about on Kickstarter? Even though I've spent way too much money, I might check it out. Alienation, the preview I did? I don't know if that's the one that you mean. The preview is live right now, or it should be. Maybe I forgot to click the button. You still be paying attention to the Q&A. Unless I have an early bird. Then run and get it. Yeah, it's up. Preview Alienation. Make sure there's no shenanigans going on with this. No. We're good. Yeah, check it out. It's a card drafting game. With little cute aliens. Let's see. What was Ian's reaction to the Builder's Antiquity? Ian from my group, Ian? I don't know that he played it. He only played the first one. Yeah, he didn't play... When I did my review, he didn't play that with me. That was a couple of other people I played it with. But it's so similar to the original, I think he'd still like it. I am always curious what people would think about the extra stuff in that, which I was like, give or take on. Do you still find time to play your favorite games multiple times, even though you have a constant stream of new games you have to review? It depends. Some games that I really like that are fan favorites in my group, and that are quick and fast and easy, yes. Like Codenames, like Deception, like older games like Shadowhunters and Resistance and Dixit, and even some games like Seasons and Abyss. Because these games are so known in the group, everyone knows how to play them, we can play them very quickly. Yes, I still find time for games like that. Other games, not so much. Pandemic Legacy, I'm revisiting for the first time in a couple of months, which really sucks. I really wanted to get to that. I played it enough to know what my final thoughts were, but I still wanted to explore everything in it. Kingdom Death Monster, I have to play solo to get it done. It's just not going to happen. Although people in my group have, now that they've seen my review, have been like, yeah, now we're interested. Can we play it? And I'm like, it's kind of a thing. It's a whole deal to do and to do in a campaign, so I don't know. But I might do a separate Kingdom Death Monster campaign with some people who are interested, on top of my solo plays. In Star Wars Rebellion, on the box art, it says 2 to 4 players. How do you think that will work? Here's how it will work. It won't. It's another deception in advertising, and I'm not like accusing Fantasy Flight of lying or anything. I'm saying this is what game companies do, and it does make me irate. It is okay. I can't say this with certainty, but apparently there's only an Empire faction and a Rebel faction, which means if it can be played with 4 players, it's probably the same way that you can technically play Queen's Gambit, Star Wars Risk, and BioShock game from Plaid Hat, or I think War of the Ring. All of these games you can technically play as 4 players, but you're just splitting up each side. You take some of the forces for the light side, you take some of the forces for the light side, and then you two split up the dark side forces, and then we go at it. In my experience, this never works. I didn't like Star Wars Risk like that. I didn't like the Queen's Gambit like that. I didn't like BioShock like that. So I really have some misgivings about that. But I could be wrong. I'm waiting for the game that changes my mind on that. And maybe they put in enough extra stuff to make it a separate system. But, that's why it's funny. I've heard some reviewers say, well, obviously, the next thing for Fantasy Flight to do is to make Twilight Imperium Star Wars. If they do that, that's great, fantastic. How are they going to do that? Explain that to me. And I want a detailed explanation as to how you're going to have the number of factions. Even if you only do 6 factions, how would that make any kind of sense in Twilight Imperium? I will gleefully read your responses. Are they going to do, like someone of my friends was like, well, they could do the Hutts. Oh, really? The Hutts, because of their grand galactic empire, they rule half the galaxy? Really? No? I don't think so. The Mon Calamari, they have a huge presence. Oh, no, it's just a couple of aliens that popped up. That's the kind of garbage I hate. If you're going to make a game based on a system, make it make sense, is my only requirement for an IP. So, I don't know where that rank came from. What Kickstarter add-ons are you getting for Black Plague? I am only getting... Let me explain the story of that, by the way. I didn't back Black Plague on Kickstarter. I actually messed up and forgot to pledge, and then I was going to do a late pledge for it, and then someone approached me and someone in a math trade was giving away a full extra night pledge for Black Plague, which not giving away, but trading away in a math trade, and which includes the base game, the expansion, and all the exclusives that are coming along with it. And so I contacted him and was like, "Hey, I'd really like to trade for these." And he also had a Besieged pledged, which I had pledged $1 for, but I wasn't going to up it. And he was like, "Well, are you keeping your old Zombicide stuff?" And here's what I ended up doing. I ended up trading every single bit of the old Zombicide stuff I had to get those 2 pledges, Besieged and Black Plague. And it's worked out. Because I was like, this is untenable here. I have too much Zombicide as it is. I'll never use any of this junk. And I think Black Plague looks more appealing to me. So I decided to go all in on that, all in on Besieged, because that looks really cool as well. And so I could have added on stuff. The guy that I did this with was like, if you want to add stuff onto the pledge, I can do that. You just have to pay me. And I didn't, though. I just didn't want any of the extra stuff. There are some like artist boxes that I want to get, but they're not exclusive. Like I want to get the one for Nayade because he's one of my favorite artists, but just to get the miniatures. And there's like one kid that looks like he's got an Orko hat that I kind of want to get, but I wasn't interested in getting that like right away. I'll get that eventually. So I didn't get anything else, but I will get the Wolfsburg expansion. When is that solo top 10 coming out? It's going to be a while. There's other games that I know are coming out soon that I want to play before I make the list. It's not like it's a rush. Do you mix all your expansions of the DC Comics deck building game together? Not quite. The way that I do it is the way that they recommend in the book, which I know that other people do. Other people will actually sit there and cater the deck to their style, taking out certain cards, putting other ones in. I do it the way the book suggests it. I put all of the, I separate all of the constituent parts, superpowers, heroes, villains, locations, and so on. And then you're supposed to use one of each type of card. So put in one stack of superpowers, one stack of heroes from any sets that you want. So I will mix and match them like that. I don't mix the games together. I know you're technically supposed to be able to mix Street Fighter with DC. I don't see a need to do that. There's so much DC stuff that there's no need to like get wacky with it. And it matters because like in the Naruto deck builder, I still maintain is like the best mechanically speaking, because it has the whole chakra system, but that doesn't exist in the other games. So you can't mix the characters with the old cards because then their chakra power is useless. And you can't mix cards that are explicitly about getting chakra or using chakra together with cards that superheroes from the other games that don't care about chakra. So it's a tough thing. It's a first world problem. Do you regret not doing the Dice Tower Marathon this year? Well, I wasn't asked, so there's no regret about it. Wait, is this a question? An IP spans multiple games but isn't as huge as, say, Star Wars? Is there an IP that spans? Is that what you're asking? I don't know. I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. But we'll get back to that. Ask it again. I know you have some qualms with Victory Point Games' production value, but are you planning to pick up either of their prestige games, Dawn of the Zeds or Nemo's War? Dawn of the Zeds is on its way to me, hopefully. I mean, I don't know if it's actually on its way to me, but I backed it on Kickstarter, so I am looking forward to it. That's one of the things that's keeping me from doing my solo list yet, because that is primarily a solo game, I think. Nemo's War, I don't know too much about. I know that it's been like all the buzz the last few weeks, so when it's on Kickstarter, I'll check it out. But I like Darkest Night from them. I like Trieste from them. That's why I said I'm a Victory Point Games fan. I've played a lot of bad games from them, though, so it's kind of on the fence at this point. So is it safe to assume, then, based on what we know now, that the new ANA, Asmodee North America, Fantasy Flight Games business decision is going to be bad for gamers? I think so. I think that casual gamers, people who are just new to the hobby, will not notice or care. People like us, it's going to be bad for. And they've decided that for their business model, that it makes smart business sense to say, who cares? We're going to do it this way. It's interesting because I read his response, Christian Peterson, the head of Fantasy Flight, now the head of Asmodee North America's response to all these questions, where he more thoroughly lays things out. And it was only slightly more informative. They still will not release a list of who the retailers that are going to be able to sell online are going to be. I don't even know if they've made that list yet. But I believe they have made the list probably months ago, and they don't want to release it because it's going to be a huge outrage. So they're waiting as long as they possibly can. But the person who posted and links to the article about that online on Board Game Geek, to the ICV2 article, was a designer and publisher, although he hasn't really done much, named Isaac Shalev, who is clearly an apologist for this whole situation. It was like, well, I don't want to hear about the ethics of the situation. It doesn't matter if it's moral or if it's good for us. It was a good business decision, and they made a great business decision, so good for them. Kudos to them. And it was the most infuriating thing I've ever read. Because while that may be true, it's almost as if there are a certain amount of people who says that whatever the publishers do, it's fine because they need to tend to their business. It's not about ethics anymore, Nick. It's not about ethics anymore. It's not about ethics or morals. It's not about treating your customer right. It's about what's going to make them the most money. And if people continue to buy their games, then what's the problem? I hate that mentality with the passion of 1,000 suns. What are you going to do? Do you think the Eldritch Horror expansion is weaker than the first? I do think that the Mountains of Madness expansion, we're talking about the big box expansions. There are 2 smaller ones, but they're not even the same ballpark as far as content. But they're good, though. Mountains of Madness, I believe, is a better expansion. There was, first off, it introduced focus tokens. I don't know why they didn't put the focus mechanic in Under the Pyramids, because if someone buys that one first, I think that's a really important thing that it would be nice to have. So that's for that alone, I might recommend Mountains of Madness. But I also think I like going to Antarctica. It's a cooler idea to me. I think it's more intimately linked to the H.P. Lovecraft mythos, just from what I know. I thought that the old ones were a little more interesting. And overall, I just thought like that was a better and also the local actions, the specific local actions on the sideboard, I thought were cooler, and those aren't even in the Pyramids board. That's not to say that the Under the Pyramids expansion is bad, but if you had to choose one or the other, because of limited time, limited budget, whatever it is, you're just not a junkie like the rest of us to buy everything, I would go with Mountains of Madness first, and then later on go for Under the Pyramids, or even go for the smaller ones first. That's me. What would it take for you to get into a miniatures game like Infinity, Frostgrave, etc.? It would take infinite time. Not infinite time, but 50 to 100% more time than I have right now. That is the only thing. I have had boxes and boxes of Relic Knight stuff sitting there unopened in my room because I don't have the time to put it together, to paint it, to play with it, or the people to play it with, really, to play a dedicated 2-player miniatures game. I know that I could get some people to try it with me, like, yeah, I'll come over and try that with you. To do it regularly, no way. That's what's keeping me back from doing it. Eldritch Horror is so hard. I almost think we are playing wrong. We have played it 8 times or so. We have only won once. Do you think we are playing wrong, or is it just that hard? It is really hard, okay? I think I've got a better win percentage than that, but no doubt it's difficult. I don't know. I don't know how you guys play it. It's hard for me to say whether you're playing it wrong or not. I'm trying to think really quickly of easily overlooked rules in my head that could be causing you to have that much agita with it. Only drawing one Mythos card. You only draw a Mythos card at the end of the round. That's it. You're not drawing in every turn, are you? You need to... I don't know. Eldritch Horror is a weird one in that you don't necessarily have to work as cooperatively as other games. You're kind of encouraged to go off and put out fires on your own. Sometimes you have to say, I can't deal with this because I have no combat strength and I'm just pounding my head against a wall made out of writhing tentacle flesh. So I can't deal with this. I'm giving up. Maybe that's the big takeaway. Cut your losses. You need to learn how to cut your losses in Eldritch Horror. I'm not saying that's your problem, but that's my general piece of advice. Some people will just sit there and be so frustrated by the random dice rolls. They're just like, I'm going to stay here until I get this done. Be prepared to just walk away. Is my big takeaway from that game. Are you a different kind of gamer when you drink? I'm a happier gamer. I do like having a little buzz when I'm playing some games, but no, I don't think so. I think I'm just I don't know, more fun. It seems like that. But I don't think it changes my play style, and I mean, obviously during party games it's better. But, Have you ever seen Jason from the Dice Towers game collection? No. What's your thoughts about people who are mega collectors? I don't criticize people's hobbies, unless their hobbies are like hurting people. But if he obviously has the funds and the space and the inclination to collect, it brings him joy, and I'm not going to criticize that. And I mean, look, I'm a de facto collector. If I had enough time to play all the games that I have in my collection, and whether review them or not, but just enough to figure out whether I like them or not, my collection would be a fraction of what it is now. I wouldn't be buried in board games, because I have no problems just getting rid of games, selling them, giving them away, trading them away. I'll trade whole piles of games for 1 or 2 games just to get rid of them. But he's a collector. He will buy games, not like them, and keep them. But that's him, and that's what he likes to do. I can't fault people for that. Again, if their hobbies aren't... My dog is going crazy. If their hobbies aren't hurting anyone else, I think more power to them. Add 1 to all lists, including Kingdom Death Monster, and gloss over it quickly. Yeah, do top 11s. I don't know about that, but that's funny. What is it like being a socialist living in America? I don't know that I'm a dictionary definition socialist, but it's becoming easier. It is very frustrating. I'm definitely a progressive, like die in the wool progressive. And sometimes I make my friend Robbie always there's a Twitter feed I think that's like called "Don't Read the Comments," and every day it says this is just like your daily reminder: don't read the comments. And my friend Robbie always used to say that to me, and I can't help it. I will read the comments on some sites and articles and see the depravity and moral degradation of people. And I'm not talking about, like, I'm talking about the people who constantly complain about moral degradation of society. Those people have de-evolved so much, to saying racist things, bigoted things, talking about our commander-in-chief like he's a monster. And it's so disheartening sometimes. It really is how far a very large percentage of our population has fallen into darkness, and sometimes it really depresses me, like, and angers me. So that is tough about living in America with my kind of viewpoints on society. But I do think it's better than it used to be. Can I ask I don't know. I guess I don't mind, but this can happen every single Q&A if I let it. Can I ask other fans to answer the number one question on the channel for me? Longtime fans know what the number one question I'm always asked is. If you guys can handle that for me, I'd be very happy. Have you seen Rahdo's final thoughts on Pandemic Legacy? I have not. A friend of mine that I played Pandemic Legacy with told me that he finished the game in 14 games. That's all I know. That is all I know about him and his reviews of it. I think that he plays it exclusively two-player. Not only two-player, but two-character two-player. Meaning each player only takes control of one character. In which case that makes sense to me because the game is significantly easier with two players. But if I'm wrong on that and he just got incredibly lucky or they're incredibly good at the game, then kudos. But that's all I know about it. And there you go. People have answered it for me. Thank you very much. But we'll make that policy going forward. Glad to hear that you'll be doing reviews for Warriors and baseball highlights. Well, eventually. Those I'm not so worried about because I played, baseball highlights I do need to play again. But Warriors I've played enough that I could review it right now and give you my final thoughts. But it's just not on my top of my queue to do. I think they're pretty much done producing Warriors. Yeah, they have to be at this point. The last one was that Light and Dark expansion, which was okay. Could you elaborate a little bit on the upcoming D&D Drow-based game, the Tyrants of the Underdark? I don't know too much. Go to Board Game Geek, and that is all the information we have right now. I know that it is an asymmetrical, area control, territory control, combat game. You each take control of families, of houses down in the Underdark of Drow. If you're familiar with the saga of the Legend of Drizzt, and he comes from a city called Menzoberranzan, which I don't even know exists in the current Forgotten Realms. Probably doesn't. But Menzoberranzan had houses of competing Drow, kind of like the Westeros. But this was before Westeros, so maybe that was inspiration for George R.R. Martin. But they were like the competing houses vying for power and vying to take the throne to become the head house of. There was like a hierarchy, like you were actually ranked, which I thought was really interesting. And so they're sort of tapping into that in a way, to have like competing houses where you're all dark elves, but you all have different special abilities and powers. And that's how it was in Menzoberranzan. There was like the house that produced the best warriors, and there was the house that produced the best wizards, and then like the head house was the one that produced the most clerics. I'll be interested to see if that's the case too. In Drow society, in Forgotten Realms, at least in the old Forgotten Realms, it was matriarchal. The women in society had the power because they were the clerics of Loth, who was the Spider Queen. They're like a matriarchal theocracy. And because Loth, who was took female aspects, was the only one who was allowed. She only allowed her female followers to be clerics. and the men were relegated to combat positions and wizardry, and in fact were kept at a lower station. They were looked down upon by the women in society, and in fact, physically speaking, the women were more imposing and like taller and stronger, more muscular than the men in society, who were shorter and scrawnier. And I'm curious if that's the way it still is in the Forgotten Realms, and if any of that is going to carry over to Tyrants of the Underdark. Like, are your commanders all women? That's a curious thing, and it's a very interesting thing, too. And it's interesting, too, because it's like, hey, look, more female representation in board games. That's fantastic. Oh, they're like the most horrible beings ever. Because they are. And traditional Dark Elf society, except for Drizzt, the Drow were horrible, horrible monsters. They did like slavers and just vicious cruelty. That's that type of stuff. Their goddess was chaotic evil. All right, it's 1 o'clock. I don't think I'm too far behind on questions. Oh, apparently I am. Sorry. Maybe I'll do my best here. Thinking if I want to answer that question or not. I'm not going to answer that question. Sorry. We both love Eldritch Horror. What kind of expansion and mechanisms for the next expansion do you like to see? I would love to see a game mode where one player played against the investigators. Oh, I like one versus all games. I think that might be... I think that might make the game, first off, too difficult. They'd have to like balance out the difficulty by giving the other players some wicked powers, the way they do with the Black Secret expansion for Ghost Stories. Which might add too much fiddliness to the game. But I'm with you. I like the idea in theory. But that's kind of like Mansions of Madness. I think if you want that feel, you should try Mansions of Madness. But what would I like to see? I'm kind of okay with it. I think maybe some more dice mitigation is what I want to see most of all. From a very mechanical standpoint, there needs to be more ways for people who have incredibly bad rolls to mitigate them. The focus tokens are a way to do that. And that's why I was so glad Mountains of Madness did that. Will you be reviewing Ninja All-Stars? Vassal suggested that his review would be rather negative. I didn't get a review copy of it. I didn't back it on Kickstarter. I had a feeling that game was not going to be that great. That it was like... Ninja Division / Soda Pop Miniatures response to Arcadia Quest, but the Kickstarter was a mess, an absolute mess, and I just got a bad feeling about it. I have no idea what Vassal's going to say about it, though. You know, if I may rant a second, it would be nice if Soda Pop, for all the fact that I talk up their games all the time. I love Super Dungeon Explorer. I always review their stuff. I talk about them all the time. Don't you think they, out of any company, would like be interested in sending me a review copy? Maybe they already know I would hate that one in particular, but it is pretty ridiculous that, well, whatever. I guess I'm whining. What conventions are you attending in 2016? It would be cool to meet you in person. Probably none. I'm sorry, John. If you ever head down to South Florida way, come by our game group. I'd be happy to meet you. Do you think Madara could become the next Kingdom Death monster? I have a very bad feeling about that one, too. Very excited about it for a while. I pledged for it for $1, and I haven't upped my pledge because I'm wondering if it's only the theme and there's no gameplay to back it up. Do you like more mature anime like Gantz? I do like mature anime like Berserk. I haven't watched Gantz all the way through. I should get back to that. Who is the hottest Disney princess? That's so weird and bizarre, but it's Ariel. I'm getting dressed while... Who's the hottest Disney princess? Now, let's give that some serious thought. First off, they're all like teenage girls, so I feel very skeevy even answering that question. But let's assume that they've been aged. Let's say that they've aged in real time, as a matter of fact. I don't like the whole fish thing, but I do like redheads, so we might have to go with Ariel. Yes? Yeah, I don't know. I don't give enough thought to that. I don't even know some of them. Also, it seems like they're bebopping and scatting all over what qualifies as a Disney princess. Apparently, if you are a female in a film owned by Disney, you are a Disney princess. Like, I saw something about Rey being considered a Disney princess from Star Wars The Force Awakens. I'm like, okay, sure. So I'll say Rey. I am getting dressed while typing this question. Does that bother you? It does the opposite, actually. Tell me more. Is there a martial art that you have always wanted to learn? Sure, I've wanted to learn them all. I think it's really cool. But of any of them, I thought that judo would probably be... I wanted to learn maybe taekwondo the most, but for my body type, like even if I were to lose weight, my body type is still like stocky. It's just the way that I am. When I was skinny, I was still like a big guy, big head, big legs, that kind of stuff. So I think maybe judo would be a better fighting style for me. I'm not going to answer that. Given that people mostly come to your videos for your opinion, how much does it really matter if you are scooped? I'm starting to come around to the way of thinking that it doesn't matter that much. Other bigger reviewers like Vassal put a tremendous amount of importance on scooping. Like, to them, it's like, if we don't get the scoop, it's worthless. To the point, well, I don't know that for sure, so I'm not going to say that. And I believed that for a while. Now, I don't know so much. Now I think unless it's like the ultimate super top tier game, I don't know that it matters. Vassal scooped everyone on Pandemic Legacy, which was a big coup. But everyone else who reviewed Pandemic Legacy has gotten a ton of views for their videos. How much more would we have realistically gotten? There's only so much audience for some of the smaller reviewers. So I am coming around to the way of thinking that it probably doesn't matter all that much. But you still want to get a review out there early, because if someone's already bought the game, if someone isn't waiting around for reviews and they buy the game, they may not go back and watch another review if they've already made up their mind about it. So I think it's still important to be timely with brand new game reviews, but as far as the actual scooping, I think as long as it's within a week, it probably doesn't even matter that much. So I'm coming around to the way of thinking of my audience, who they constantly reassure me it just doesn't matter that much. Have you played CO2 and what do you think about it? I have not. I've heard mixed things. I probably wouldn't like it. Have you had a chance to try out Tabletopia? If so, what are your thoughts? They seem to have support from a lot of designers, publishers, and looks like a great platform for prototypes. I haven't played it. I'm really not interested in playing games that way, although it may be great. But I don't know. It's just not for me personally, but I've heard other people say it's great. So if it's for you, then I know that some people don't have access to a reliable gaming group. Some people don't have access to the physical games like they would want to. And that's a much easier and cheaper way to do it. So it seems like a great idea. Have you watched the food-themed anime Food Wars? No, but I've heard good things about that. Have you played Cardfight Vanguard? No, but I've heard good things about that. No, I actually know that Weiss Schwartz is very similar to Cardfight Vanguard in some regards. So that's what I went all in on, but I have to still review that. Which movie experience has made you shed the most amount of man tears? Do you mean like I was legitimately sad watching the movie? I've gotten emotional at movies before. I think I was... dang it, I don't know. I got teary-eyed at parts of The Force Awakens. Not necessarily even the part that you would suspect I'd be the most sad at, like the big plot twist near the end. But there were just parts of it that were super emotional, like this is not, if you haven't watched it, this isn't really a spoiler, but there's a scene where Rey and Finn hug, and they're crying, and I was like, I got misty-eyed. I was like, oh, that's because they're such good characters. That's when I know that a character is good. That I feel for them, and I can empathize with them, and I cared about what they were doing on the screen. I'm like, that's sweet, you know, and I didn't get those feelings at all from the prequels. That is the killer of the prequels. And that's why when people say, how could you possibly like Star Wars The Force Awakens? It's nothing but a rehashing of the first one. It's not even original. I'm like, you have missed the point entirely, my friend. The point was never to be the most original, creative, or like super intricate story. The point was these were incredible characters, And what do we do to bring these characters together? It's not about, again, I'll repeat a lot of the stuff that like Plinkett and the Red Letter Media guys have said. It ain't about how does the warp drive work on the Millennium Falcon? You know, what's the intricate details of this character's backstory? It ain't about that. It's about the characters. And so any movie that has characters who are fully fleshed out and developed and actually show emotion in the movie are more likely to bring man tears to me. Have you ever designed a game or had an idea for a game you wanted to design? I've had ideas, but I would never design a game, and I have not yet. It's just not for me. I'm a consumer of products, and I only produce videos about them. The next question is, have you tried Waste Nights? I have the game right here, and I was actually just popping it all out. I may play it tonight. I have more casual people in the group tonight than usual, so that seems a bit heavier, but we'll see. My favorite game of 2015 was Warband Against the Darkness. What are your thoughts on it? I think it looks great on my shelf of games that I haven't played yet. It's there. I bought a copy of it before it sold out. I don't know if it's back in print or not. Which game do you like better, Yomi or Battlecon? Battlecon is my number one game, but debating on trying Yomi. For me personally, I think Battlecon is a better game, but they're just different because Yomi is very fast, and takes up no table space whatsoever, really, just the space of your playing area in front of you, and it's very fast and visceral, and you can use them for regular playing cards, which no one ever does. But Battlecon is much more of a board gamer's game. It's not. I wouldn't even necessarily call it a card game, although I guess it is. It is, but it uses a board. You have little mini standees. You have you only have a very small deck of cards that you play from. It's a very different experience. It's a much more methodical, intense, less random game. Is there any randomness in? There's no randomness in Battlecon. It's just, can I outthink my opponent? What is your day job, if you don't mind me asking? I work at a marketing company down in Coconut Creek. Do you think the other 7 sins would have high replay value? Which add-ons are you going to get? I don't know that yet. Sure, why not? I think it looks very good. There's a lot of different sins to fight and their armies to fight and lots of characters. I don't know why. It would have replay value as much as any other game. Have you ever considered doing contests or giveaways with the games you no longer want or didn't like? I'm going to be doing contests with Board Game Bliss, specifically for games that either I don't know anything about, they're just hot games, or games that I specifically like we did with Seasons. I do not want to give away games I don't like, because I want to give away a game I endorse, so I can be proud to give it away and make someone very happy. So that's why I don't do that. I've given away extra copies of games that I have. In fact, I might go ahead and do that again very soon, maybe even tomorrow. But I don't make it a habit at all for games that I don't like. Argent the Consortium as a 2-player game. Is it worth it? That's the 1-player count I think I didn't play that game at, so I can't really speak to that. It seems like it would work, though. My handle on Board Game Geek is the Kill Shirt, and I did support them for 2015 and 2016. If you go and support them now, it counts as 2016. I've supported them since 2012. And you should too. If you use Board Game Geek, throw them some bucks. It's worth it. Because if you pledge at a certain level, you can get ad block, so you don't have to see the ads, and you get some Geek Gold. I mean, it's worth it. They give a amazing, valuable service to the community. Hi, can you compare Blood Rage and Kemet? They're territory control games. You get points, and there are monsters. So in those, and they're both fantasy games of different types: Vikings and Ancient Egypt fantasy. Other than that, there's significant differences. There's no there is card combat in both games, but the way the card combat works, and it does actually work the same. You take a card from your hand and put it down, but you draft the cards from a deck and from 3 decks in Blood Rage. You spend you have a pool of power points in Blood Rage that you spend on multiple things, whereas in Komet you have amount of action points that must be spent on very specific actions in a certain way. Komet is they're both battle oriented. I would say they're actually pretty similar, but their differences can be stark, especially like the whole Ragnarok thing and a set number of ages in Blood Rage adds like a much more like encroaching time limit on the game, whereas in Komet it is a race, but it's not a set number of rounds, so it feels like you have more breathing room. Nick, have you seen Zero Agents? I kickstarted it a while ago. It looks like something you might have enjoyed. It came out at the same time as Madara, and I decided against backing it because when I actually looked at the rules for it, I'm like, oh, despite the cool-looking hot chick anime theme, this may not be much of a game. Why the kill shirt? That was back when Dexter was still good, before it ran completely off the rails. Now I wish I hadn't chose. It's a reference to Dexter and how Dexter always wears one particular type of shirt when he murders his victims. And then the last 2 to 3 seasons of that show were abysmal garbage. The first 4 seasons of Dexter are great, but I wouldn't even recommend them now because then people are going to say, oh, well, I've watched 4 seasons, they were great. I'll just go ahead and watch the 5th, 6th, and 7th. No! Stop! Oh my god, they ruined that show. And now they're talking about bringing it back. That should be a crime against humanity. In the eyes of God and man, that is a sin against nature. Do you think Lucas would make a better Star Wars 7 than JJ? Absolutely not, because Lucas did not learn a single lesson from the prequels. I guarantee it. I guarantee the arrogance of that man, as evidenced in that interview he did where he referred to Disney as white slavers who took his children from him. I kid you not, if you didn't know about that interview. He does not learn anything. He hasn't learned a thing about why those movies were hated by so many people. And I understand if you're from a certain generation, you probably like the prequels. And I understand that they were a spectacle and there was a lot of cool battles, okay? And it's Star Wars. But those movies had serious issues, and I promise you, he has not learned his lesson from those. And so I am very, very happy that they wrested it from his iron grip and gave it to somebody else. And my opinion is that J.J. Abrams is a very good director, and he did a great job with it. I know it is cool to hate on J.J. Abrams for some of his other stuff, but I have been thoroughly entertained by, I think, everything that he's done to some degree or another. The movie, what was it? Is it 8mm? Not very good, but it was all right. I was entertained. Have you backed Arcadia Quest Inferno? Yes. I can't believe YouTube live stream is working for a change here in Nazi Germany. Hi, Nick. Well, are you in the world of The Man in the High Castle? Can I please get a shout out? No. Why is there... Yes. Candy Floss 11. Hi. Why is there always one IP that does so much better than the other? E.g. Star Wars is handled so much better than Star Trek, and Marvel is handled much better than DC. Game of Thrones versus Walking Dead. Are those comparable? By the way, I like The Walking Dead, so I don't know what you're talking about. I don't like the comic book, but I like the show. But yeah, Game of Thrones is a more critically acclaimed show for sure. There's only so much talent to go around. That could be one thing, especially in the world of science fiction. And it always seems like there's someone who's first to the game, and then other people are trying to play catch up with it. But Star Trek and Star Wars is so interesting because for a long time, up until J.J. Abrams did the new movie reboots, there was no competition. There was only competition amongst the fans of those shows. But those two franchises went in completely opposite directions. Star Wars was always just big spectacle movies. Star Trek was always series that is highly introspective and deals with hypothetical fiction and real life scientific stuff that could one day happen. So I always was very curious, like why Again, the creators of those shows and producers just clearly were like, we're going in different directions, and there can be overlap because we're so different things, but the fans were always like bashing each other, and I don't think that's a comparable thing at all. Marvel versus DC is a more interesting thing because Marvel came out of nowhere. Marvel had no movie unit and was doing very poorly. And then Spider-Man came around, and Spider-Man was a Sony Pictures property, and it was like, whoa, this is really successful. And I mean, the third one sucked, but I think it was still even commercially successful. So, I mean, then Marvel was like, whoa, we can actually do something with this, and that gave birth to Iron Man. And they started building this universe, but they took the time with it, right? They laid the groundwork. They methodically went about creating this universe. DC wants to just have that universe. They're like, oh, well, it worked for them. Let's just do it. But you can't just do it. And that's the thing I'm most worried about with the new Dawn of Justice, Superman versus Batman movie. They're throwing too much stuff all in at once, and the reason they're throwing all that stuff in at once is because they want to jumpstart their DC cinematic universe right away. Get it going, get the Justice League movie out, and then we'll be on equal footing with Marvel. But they're not putting in any of the time, and that's what I'm worried about. They could have done that. I mean, they could have done that with the Batman Begins and started a new thing. They could have made a good Superman movie. I wasn't as much of a hater of Man of Steel as other people, but it wasn't great. And I don't know. I can't explain why they can't get it right for sure. Okay, and someone else brings up another good point too. Marvel and Star Wars are both owned by Disney now, and Disney is, if Disney knows anything, it's how to sell a product, and they have figured out a way to package their products. It's very cynical on their part. They're just trying to make as much money as possible, but they have done it in such a way that is completely and utterly endearing to the public. Disney is one of the most beloved franchises ever. I mean, even uber nerds who are skeptical of everything love reposting memes about Disney princesses, as evidenced in this Q&A. Okay? That is how popular and strong their brand is. Even if people don't go around saying the word Disney in conversations, they're talking about the stuff that they own and produce. And so they know how to market stuff. And yeah, Disney buying out Marvel, it's true that Marvel was already on the upswing, but for sure, I don't think that it would be as much of a monumental powerhouse if it wasn't for the Disney influence. Where do you get all your pimp-ass shirts? At the Pimp-Ass store. No, I get them at several different websites. This one might have been, I don't remember. But there's Ripped Apparel, RIPT Apparel, T-Fury, T-E-E-F-U-R-Y, Shirt Punch, which is from Canada, but they have really cheap shipping, so it doesn't matter. Occasionally I'll go to T-Turtle. T-Turtle does a very specific type of shirt with like chibi characters. Some of them are funny, some of them are not. They did do a funny one. I don't like Naruto, so I wouldn't get the shirt, but it's a funny shirt where it's got like a bunch of ninjas in like traditional ninja garb sitting in the darkness on a tree, like hunched over with like no weapons brandished, just like looking down at their target. And then Naruto is standing right next to them, and like his bright orange jumpsuit and blonde hair with his shuriken out, like it's just like, yeah, okay, maybe we shouldn't have called them ninjas in that manga. It is late. I should probably end this. I feel like I could go on and on and on, but we are actually almost to the end. It looks like I'm almost out of questions anyways. Good stuff. All right, cool. Is there anything else that I thought was really great? All right, last question. 2 questions. I'll do these last 2 questions and we're done, I swear. Start saying goodbye. Do you have an opinion on a Coliseum? New Kickstarter is supposed to be starting soon. I never played the old one. Doesn't seem like it's my kind of game, really. I think it's one of the games that was seriously overhyped by certain reviewers online, and it became just like Mission Red Planet, which I don't think is selling very well because no one cares about it, just like they didn't care about the first printing of it, and just like Days of Wonder stopped printing Coliseum for a reason. It has its cult fans, but I don't think it's going to be a huge hit. And I think the Tasty Minstrel is doing their own personal branding and redesign as usual, and it looks like garbage, but who knows? Maybe it's good. And have you ever played a musical instrument, or have you ever wanted to learn one? I have tried to learn piano, and I still would love to learn piano. That's the one I want to learn more than anything, because I think it's a awesome instrument. It's all right, so that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out in these Q&As with me. It's my favorite part of the channel. I'm going to have to clean and get ready for my game group tonight. We got some new people coming over on top of some others. And look for some more content. I'll be filming a couple more previews tomorrow, but they're probably not going up right away. And then I might just take the rest of the day off after that tomorrow and then not do any more reviews until Monday. But then you can expect to see some more stuff. So 2 or 3 more reviews on Monday. So thank you so much, everyone. I love you all. Have a happy new year. I really mean that. If you had a hard time in 2015, we all have. I mean, just in society in general, it was really a tough time last year. A lot of sad things happened, and everyone's got personal stuff going on. But I always say, especially from like one of my favorite anime, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, as Edward said at one point, you get up and you put one foot in front of the other, and you make the decision to keep walking forward, putting one foot in front of the other, and that is what I will tell you to do, and you will hope that things will get better. And I certainly hope that things do if you're having a tough time, and I hope that your 2016 is amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.